Hello students, today I'll explain to you why the objects are sinking. What is your answer? You will say that weight is more, so the objects are sinking. But what about the ships and boats we see in our day-to-day life? They all are floating, even they have thousands of cages, they can able to float in the water. Only weight does not make the objects to sink. If only weight makes the objects to sink, the whole ship can able to sink in the water. But it is not happening. So there is another thing which we are going to discuss in this video. That is what? Buoyancy. And buoyancy. Today I'll explain you an activity. Let me do that activity with the arrangement setup that I have taken here. When I am going to drop this rock into the water, the two forces are acting on this rock. One is weight in the downward direction, another one is buoyant force in the upward direction. Here, why the rock is sink into the water means the downward force weight is more than that of the upward force buoyant force. So, downward weight is more than buoyant force which is in the upward, so that it is sinking into the water. Let me discuss how to find out the buoyant force now. To find the buoyant force presented in the water, we need to have some arrangement setup. For that I have taken a overflowing jar. It is what we call it as overflowing jar, and a stone, and we need to consider a small weighing machine to measure the weight of the object. Now first I am going to set the overflowing vessel with water. I need some more water to set this. As soon as it reaches the maximum height, we should stop. Even we pour some more water, the overflow will come outside and sets the overflowing vessel to the top level. The setting of the overflowing vessel we note now. The overflowing vessel is set now. Now let me remove all the water which is presented, excess water which came from the overflowing vessel. I am going to take it out. Now to find the buoyant force on the rock, now I need to find out the weight of this rock. Let me switch on the weighing machine, and I am going to place the rock on the weighing machine. You can see the value is shown on the weighing machine as 60 grams. So the 60 gram weight I am considering there. Now we see how much buoyant force will be. Now to measure the buoyant force which I am going to place, when I am going to place this rock into the water, there is a buoyant force, right? To measure the buoyant force based on the Archemedies principle, Archemedies principle states that the water displaced by this rock, the weight of the water displaced by this rock is equals to the buoyant force. So for that I need to measure the water weight only. For that I am going to consider this extra mass, the vessel extra mass, I am going to take it as 0. Now the vessel is showing that the 0 weight when I am going to place inside. So with this we can able to find only water displaced weight of the water displaced by it. Now I am going to consider this stone. I am going to put it into the overflowing vessel. When I am going to place the rock into the overflowing vessel, you can observe some water which is coming out from the overflowing tap and fall inside the vessel. As I am going to put this stone into the vessel, you can able to see some water which came out. Finally it stops overflow. Until that we should wait. As the stone is inside the water, the overflow came outside, means the volume of the stone displaced some amount of water from the vessel. Now I am going to measure the fluid displaced by the stone, that is equals to the buoyant force. Fluid displaced by the stone. You can see the weight of the fluid displaced by the stone is 22 grams only, but the weight of the stone is 60 grams, we already noticed, so that the downward force is more than the upward force, which is buoyant force. So downward force is 60 grams, upward force is 22 grams. So what do you understand from this? The less buoyant force on the stone, so stone sink into the water. Thanks for watching this video. In the next video, I will explain you why objects float.
Let's go.
Hello students. Today we are going to learn about why some objects will float in the water. We know rock, iron nail, these things will sink in the water. And we know thermocol, cork, wood, like these objects will float in the water. Now to find out how these objects will float in the water, we know if I am going to drop the single stone into the water, it will sink into the water. That's why to float this rock in the water, I have taken a cap. Okay, this cap will increases the volume of this stone, as this stone won't sink into the water when I am going to drop this cap along with the stone. Now to measure the weight of this cap, I kept it on the weighing machine. You will observe the weighing machine's weight is showing on the reading, that is 10 grams. So 10 grams of object which I am going to drop on the water. We see how the cap will float in the water. First, we set up the overflowing vessel. As it is releasing some more amount of water, I am removing all the water from the vent. Okay. First we set up the overflowing vessel, and then we need to measure the weight of the container. Weight of the container is 129. I am going to make it tare. Now I am going to place this container at the bottom of the overflowing vessel. Now let me observe what will happen if I am going to drop the cap into the water. Notice that there is a rise in the water in the overflowing vessel, and this water which we collected through the container, which we kept under the vent of the overflowing vessel. As per Archemedies principle, we are going to measure the buoyant force. The buoyant force is equals to the weight of the fluid displaced by the object. To measure the buoyant force acting on the cap, we are going to measure weight of the liquid displaced by the cap. Now you can able to see. Now we measure the weight of the liquid displaced by this cap. You can find the value as 13 grams. This shows the weight of the cap is in the downward direction is 10 grams, but weight upward direction is 13 grams. So the object is floating because of upward force is more than downward force. This is nothing but Archimedes principle. Based on Archimedes principle, we can able to make the substances to float. So based on Archimedes principle, we can make the ships, the designing ships and submarines can be designed based on this Archimedes principle. And with the help of this Archimedes principle, we can able to find the different substances density. Okay. Signing off, Ramesh Kumar, Polepalli.